All right. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy Hicks. I am a career coach here in the Career Center, and I work with graduate students and also alumni of UNT. So, it's my pleasure to share information with you. And lucky today to have an employer that's joining us who can really give us that insight and that insider knowledge on the whole career search process. So, wherever you're at in your journey of finding, finishing up your program and looking for an opportunity, if you're doing both at the same time, hopefully some of these tips will be helpful for you. And also, do know that the Career Center is here for you for an individual appointment or for some of our events. So this isn't something that we can accomplish in one session. So it's going to be a continuing process, managing your career and hopefully finding a job or opportunity that you're really excited about. So that's what we're here for, and that's what we want to help you with. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to let Faith talk a little bit and introduce herself, and then we'll move forward with the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I'll try not to mess up too much since I know you guys are recording. Like Amy said, my name is Faith. I work with MedPace, and I'll go into a little bit more in depth on what MedPace does a little bit later. But I work within our human resources department, and I've been with MedPace for about 2 years now. And then prior to that, I had some really unique opportunities with the Cincinnati Reds and Cedar Fair Entertainment, which is like the owners of Kings Island, Cedar Point, a few others, if you guys have heard of those. So, really unique industry experiences. Um, and primarily, my main focus is recruiting, whether that be new grads. I also hire directors, executives, kind of depending. Primarily focus on life sciences degrees, but with MedPace, we kind of hire about any background. We have a lot of different positions, so lots of neat experiences. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys and give a little bit more insight to the job search.
Awesome. Thank you, Faith. So let's go ahead and kind of look at everything. So I would suggest thinking of where you're at right now in kind of a continuum. So maybe thinking about creating a career plan, kind of a map, a timeline, whatever kind of list or Excel spreadsheet or visual that is helpful for you, because everything that we're going to talk about today is going to involve doing a little bit of research, because all of the prep work is going to hopefully make your time spent more effective in actually applying for jobs that seem to match your experiences, where you seem to be a good fit. And that's what we want to do, is for you to take time to find the right opportunities. So if you're spending all of the energy, it's the right opportunities. So figuring out the steps that you need to take to create those matches. So some of the things that you can do are to really understand what the skill sets are needed for a particular position, and then also understanding what your greatest skills are. So if you haven't really, and if I've met with you individually, we've probably talked about this, but ONET, which is linked here on this screen, and it's also in the presentation that's in the chat, is really a repository of career information that gives you, that are reported jobs that have a whole report summary of what one actually does, what skills are needed, how much money, how the salaries that are reported, job opportunities, growth rate. And it really gives you a good idea of what the expectation is for that job, and that it even goes into depth as what technologies are used. So if you're interested in being a, doing marketing analysis, and you're seeing these different technologies listed and you haven't, had the opportunity to work in those, or you feel like you could increase your proficiency, that's a clue for you to work on those things and to find out how you can close that gap. And while you're at UNT, and I cannot stress this enough, it's, you have access to all of this, to Coursera and LinkedIn Learning and y- and all of the other resources we have. So we want to make sure that you're understanding what skill sets are needed for jobs. And if you're not even sure what to look for, ONET's a great place. You can just type in one keyword and get all the careers that are associated with that keyword and all the reports on that. And then you take that information and you look at other places like LinkedIn, and then you find people that are doing what you might want to do and you're asking them questions. So it's a lot of um, networking. And networking, really, I don't really like that word a whole lot, but it's really just talking to people. It's just meeting new people, asking questions, listening, sharing about you, and just kind of getting out of your comfort zone. So that's going to be really important, because before you even fill out a job application online, you need to have done all this before. Otherwise, your job search is not as um, efficient, and I think could be more frustrating if you're applying to so many different things and you're not really sure where, is this going to stick. So I would suggest doing a lot of research and figuring out what's out there and taking stock of yourself to really to to be really comfortable when you're looking at job descriptions that that is a good fit for you. So getting involved in professional organizations, LinkedIn, your family, your friends, your professors, student organizations, using the LinkedIn Alumni Finder, and volunteering. These are all ways you can find out what other people are doing, where they're working, the culture of different organizations, to find out, do I want to pursue that? Um, so these are things that I would highly suggest working on now, and create some specific goals within each of these areas that you can take forward. And then we have a lot of career fairs here at the UNT Career Center where employers are coming here. So that is a lot easier for you. So participating in those will give you a lot of practice conversing with employers, practicing speaking about yourself, and then asking questions about your industry. What are some of the challenges that new grads are facing right now? And that way you can try to, see if there's anything that you can do. You can be the most knowledgeable from the experts themselves. So this is the checklist that I would say is going to help you with your job application. So I've linked a lot of assessments on here that I think can be really valuable during different stages of your career, management process. So whenever you're about to do something different, or you might have some opportunities presented to you, doing these assessments can help you really take stock in the environment that's most comfortable for you, based on your academic experience, based on your job experience. What is some areas that I really want to pursue, and then what can I do with this major will give you, actual links to different areas within a major of what you can do. So if you're majoring in biology, okay, what can I do with this degree? And then within that, how do I make myself more marketable? What can I do? What organizations, do I need to get connected with? And at the end, we can pull up some of these sites and look at that. But a lot of these individual sites have their own job boards, they have their own career pages. So you want to immerse yourself in, around people that are talking about the same things, the area that you're interested in, the field that you'd like to go in. So these are really important. Coursera, like if you feel like you're lacking in maybe technical, maybe Excel, maybe you'd like to brush up on Excel, you can do that as a UNT student for free with these links here. Practice interviewing, ONET is a great one, and we'll look at that at the end. And then Imagine PhD, these are on our Career Center website, and Imagine PhD gives you all sorts of information within certain disciplines, and it gives you ways to see what one does in that kind of job, like a day in the life kind of thing. And I think that's really helpful. And then it gives you ways to connect with people that are doing that. So, like in the academic world, there's academic networking with like academia.edu and then other sites. The sciences, there's other types of networking. So Imagine PhD can give you some specific sites. Also in the chat, I put an Excel sheet that has a list of job boards that are really specific. It does include some of the general ones that we're going to talk about, like LinkedIn and Indeed, and but there's also really specific ones. Like if you're in the arts, like Glasstire is amazing. If you're in, higher education, there's several. We're going to look at a few science ones here as well. So those are going to be jobs that are, may not be everywhere. So if you're looking on, Indeed, you might see a lot of jobs and you might not be sure, is this still open? Is this really what I'm looking for? But if you go to the actual website themselves and cross check it, that's a good sign. And then using some of these other sites can probably connect you with some other opportunities. And then it's also a really great way to see what jobs are posted. What are they called? What do I do with that? Then you do more research. You do more research in ONET and you do more research in LinkedIn. So you can find companies that are hiring. So I suggest even making a list of, companies, a list of possible employers or industries that seem to interest you the most, that match with your background, and just kind of work through those for a while, kind of document your results, document your communication, document your applications, your emails, and then, assess, how is this working? Am I getting calls? Seeing what's working and what's not. But by narrowing down your job search through through these websites, I think can be really helpful. So, where do you look for jobs? So, these are the main ones kind of here that we work with, almost daily. Handshake is, what we use in the Career Center. So, Handshake is kind of like LinkedIn for students. It's where our employee partners put their opportunities. Okay. So whether it's an internship, whether it's a full-time job, whether it's entry level or possibly for someone that has more experience, there's a lot of opportunities on Handshake. And Handshake is good because we have connections with employers, just like Faith is here today, we have connections. And so they're very interested in recruiting from universities, and that's why they're here. And so any of these events, if you hop on a call, you can very easily talk to an employer. And sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when you're out on your own trying to make those connections. When you're looking on Handshake, I would suggest not using too many filters, maybe like a location or a keyword, even maybe not even your major, because if you are majoring in business, that's going to be really broad. But if you might want to use, either narrow it down or open it up. So if you're majoring in biology, you might want to put in other keywords like, environment or um, um, policy or something like that. But Handshake is a really great resource. And our website, we roll all of the featured jobs, so our website is the best way to stay connected, and you can create a profile and interact, and create your Handshake profile just like you would LinkedIn, very professional, have all your information filled out so employers can find you. And if you apply through a job, they see a very professional profile. And LinkedIn is great because, I think almost all employers are using LinkedIn. And I think Faith will talk a little bit more about how, MedPace uses LinkedIn, but a lot of employers will check your LinkedIn profile. They're going to check for, you know, um, if there's any discrepancies, kind of making sure that everything looks the same. There's no red flags, all that your kind of career story is matching up with what your resume says. But LinkedIn is great for finding jobs because you can connect with these people. So if I want to work at a certain, governmental agency, I can follow that agency. I can find recruiters that are working for that agency, maybe get them in my network. And then if I'm making any applications or I want to do an informational interview, I can use LinkedIn as well. And the LinkedIn job search feature, you can indicate what your key jobs that you're looking for are. I think you can pick up to 8 or 9, I believe. And the more you use it, the more you'll get recommended jobs for you all the time. So I think it's a very reliable place to find jobs. Of course, a company's website themselves is great too. ONET is going to give you job postings. And if you're interested in working on campus, we use Handshake. So jobs on campus, GA, TA, graders, research assistants, those should be posted on Handshake. However, I will say that if you talk to your professor, you talk to the coordinator in your department, find out who hires students, let them know you're interested, have your resume ready to go. Sometimes there's opportunities within the college, within your department. So it's kind of both. See what's posted on Handshake, network within your field. Also, I have seen that if you are interested in working on campus, maybe doing maybe being a GA, if you get a different job on campus, let's say maybe a library technician or another job, it's easier to kind of move around. So it's kind of like that foot in the door, and that is kind of the case even on campus. So if you really need to work on campus or you want to work on campus, be open, with the jobs because it's really great experience. It does look good on the resume, and it seems to open up more doors also. When you're on Glassdoor or Indeed, you can set your experience to appropriate level. So like if you're entry level, you can put, entry level. That way hopefully you're getting more recommendations that are a little bit more curated to what you're looking for. My suggestion is if you find something on Indeed, go to the actual company website, see if you can find it there, see if it's still open. You don't want to waste your time, submitting an application that's not going to be looked at or where so many people have applied that it's been too long. So professional organization sites have career boards. They have job postings that are very, very particular. They're very specific. Use social media, not so you can join job groups, you can join professional groups, but then also join career groups. Let your networks know that you're looking. Create a professional, even, depending on your field, an Instagram account. We've talked about branding and having like a website and things like that. So you can let people know that you're looking through social media, but then you can also get connected with career groups on social media too. That's a really, really powerful tool. So here's kind of what an example would be on that spreadsheet that was in the chat. It has very specific websites. So here's a few life science favorites. So looking at these job boards are going to be definitely more specific. They're going to be at higher level positions. So I suggest finding those, looking on the spreadsheet I sent. We'll look at ONET and what can I do with this major? And they'll list all the professional organizations associated with what you're studying. So another note on nonprofits, be open-minded to looking at positions. You might be surprised at, what you think you might want to do, but then once you start really looking at job descriptions and other companies, it may give you more inspiration to look at other things. So keep an open mind. And I think this more specific that you can get with these, if your goal is to find a job that's very closely related to your major, and then you stick with these specific ones. I think that would really help. And then also when you're in these, take note of the job titles, and then you can plug those in different places. Plug those in LinkedIn, plug those in Google, plug those in Indeed, and then you can find them. But if you don't know what you're looking for, go to these more specific sites and start getting, seeing what titles are coming up, what the experience is, so you know what to look for. So as you're going through this process, there's going to be other things that you need to do, like get your documents ready. So if you find something, I want to apply for this. When do I apply? Do I apply now? Do I apply when I graduate? What do my documents look like? You want to make sure that you are in a good place and everything is as professional as possible when you're going to take the time to do that, because it is very time consuming. And so these are some of the ways the Career Center can help you. You can meet with a coach in your discipline. So if you're in the College of Engineering, we have a College of Engineering coach that can work with you on DICE. DICE is a job board for technical jobs, computer engineering, and so things like that. And then if you have no experience, if you haven't had the opportunity to do an internship, if your program did not require one, there may be an opportunity for that job shadowing while you're here. Any experience that you can get, even if it's a very short term or virtual experience, is only going to help you. So you want to find out if any of that will work, with your program. Find out from the Career Center what you can do. Um, so I encourage you to check all of that out. So now at this time, I'm going to have Faith kind of jump on, share with us a little bit about her company and what her experience is with the job application process. And then we can look at some of these sites at the end and go ahead and talk about what you all are going through right now.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. A lot of really good things you had to say. I agree with almost everything you said for sure. So I work for MedPace, as we were saying. MedPace is a contract research organization, which is really a fancy way of saying clinical research organization. So basically, we help perform clinical trials. We work with different therapeutic areas such as like oncology, hematology, infectious disease, rare disease, just to name a few. Definitely just a really unique industry, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. I think this coronavirus outbreak definitely has brought a lot of light to the industry, which has been really unique. And I think it definitely has helped because a lot of people are more aware of what's going on, and it's been a really unique time to work in a CRO for sure. MedPace is headquartered in Cincinnati, which is where I'm located, and then our other offices are in Dallas and Denver. So that's just a little brief description of MedPace, but from a recruiting standpoint, Amy gave a lot of really great tips that'll really help you guys as you are getting ready to start that job process. If I'm to say anything about it, the number one thing is do your research on the company and or the position. I think even if say you get the interview, if you don't know anything about the company or a position that you applied for, it's going to look really bad, and that will be the last interview you have with that company. I hate to say that. But I know that's the first question I always ask is, oh, what do you know about MedPace? I'm not expecting you to be able to say everything under the moon. We understand it's a very unique industry, but we just want to know that you at least took the time to look at our LinkedIn page, look at our website, just have something to say. Same with the position. Make sure you know what type of position you applied for and have a decent understanding of what we're looking for and really why you're a fit for the company. I know when we're looking for these candidates and we're searching for you guys, the main things we use for a lot of our roles are we hire anything from entry level all the way up into the director, executives. So each way we hire is a little bit different. That you use little different platforms, but the number one way is LinkedIn. I can say for 100% honesty, I spend at least 5 hours a week on LinkedIn. Sourcing, which is where I will type in certain criteria based on maybe your major or where you're located or certain keywords. And I just sit there and look at all of your profiles for hours at a time, looking at your experiences, seeing if you're a fit for what we're looking for. So one thing that Amy said that really stuck with me is make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. 100%. Try to make sure all of the information is accurate as possible. Make sure there's dates on there for if you have experiences or your education. It's really helpful. So that way, as a recruiter, if I'm looking to see, I see that on your resume that you have a bachelor's degree, and that's all I see. I'm like, okay, but what have they done? Have they done anything since they graduated? What have they been doing? Is there a gap? Those are all things we really do look for. So it's definitely helpful if you can put the years that, like, maybe, you worked at this job from 2014 to 2018, and then you started school in 2019. So if we see a really clear picture of what you're doing, what your career growth looks like, anything like that is super helpful from a recruiting standpoint to get you noticed, especially through LinkedIn. Um, One thing I would also say is when you start looking for these different positions, really think about what you want to do in your career. So, for example, say you want to be a project manager. Maybe right out of school, that's not really an option. You're going to have to get a little bit more experience first. Be open to opportunities. I know when I was looking, and I tell a lot of these people when I have conversations with new grads or college students, I always tell them, look, find somebody in the position that you're interested in, see what path they took. So, if they, for example, worked as a project coordinator before becoming a project manager, look into that position. Do you think that's something you'd like to do? And then reach out to somebody, alumni, previous people at companies you may know, friends, family, anybody who may have a background similar to what you're looking for. Reach out to them. I know you hear that all the time with networking. It's probably beaten into your head a little bit, but it honestly is the number one way for a company to notice you, as well as for you to get an in. One, I would say the number one way for somebody to get into a company is if I hear employee referral too. If somebody comes to me saying, "Hey, I know you hired me last month. This colleague of mine who worked in the lab with me is interested. Do you mind looking at their resume?" I will always look at it. It doesn't mean I'll be able to move forward with an interview, but I will always look at it, because that means somebody I took the time to interview and to hire is coming back to me and they want to send me somebody else. Totally not going to turn that away. So take advantage of your alumni. If you know somebody who maybe is a little bit older than you, and they just graduated and you hear they got a job, see what it's about. If you think it's something you could be interested in, reach out to them, talk to them, hand them your resume. Obviously, before that, make sure your resume is as up to date as possible and you have everything on there before you're sending somebody your resume. And to follow any company you're interested in. On LinkedIn, I would say we get that a lot. We post on our LinkedIn daily, if not more. We'll post opportunities, networking events, virtual interview days, things like that. So if you're already following us, you'll be the first ones to see these notifications, as well as those jobs being posted. And that'll be the easiest way for you to connect with somebody. I know a lot of companies, especially right now with COVID, are doing virtual networking sessions, informational sessions, things like that. Try to attend. What does it hurt? If it doesn't work out and maybe you're like, yeah, this isn't a fit for me, you may have lost an hour of your time, but it may work out and that company may be the perfect fit for you. You may have found a different position you never thought of before. Uh, and that's also something, keep options open. I think Amy said that a couple of slides ago, and I 100% echo that. Everybody, I think when you get ready to graduate, you think, oh, I want to do this. I know for sure that's the career path I want to take. Sometimes to get there, you have to use a little unique ways. You have to try a different job. There's so many opportunities out there, that just keeping your options open, being reasonable to opportunities, listening to people. If you see something that you think might be interesting or you could be a fit for, go ahead, apply for it. Look into it a little bit more. Do your research. It doesn't hurt at all. I highly recommend it, especially from a recruiter standpoint. I get all the time, especially new grads, when I say, "What are your career goals?" and they'll tell me, they're like, "I'm not really sure how I want to get there, but this is something along the lines I want to do." And I can sit there and I can tell you, well, okay, this is what you could do, and here's how we can get you to your career goals. So with that statement, I always like to push this is one question, whether that be in the interview or if you're talking to somebody as a networking, ask about career growth. That is the number one thing when you're looking for a company and a position. You want to make sure there's opportunities for growth in a role. So if you're looking for, like, we're going back to my original example of a project manager, and you find somebody on LinkedIn who has that role, and maybe a company you're super interested in, but you see they have had that same position for 10 years, and you reach out to them and they say, yeah, there's no real opportunity for growth. You're in this role. There's one manager. That's it. You may want to think about that clearly. Like, is that really what you want? Is that how the culture and the environment of a company you want? I know, for example, MedPace takes career growth super seriously. We have career paths and everything. And as a new grad, that was my favorite thing to hear. I'm like, oh, I can see where I can go. And it's clearly labeled out. And it shows you, like, there's that growth opportunity there. So always ask that when you're looking for career positions or talking to a recruiter or even just networking with somebody else. Try to talk to them, see what that path would look like for them. The other thing I can always say is on your platform, so LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, whatever you decide to use, um, always apply through the company's website. I think Amy mentioned that. I will echo this 100 times if I have to. Sometimes it gets lost. It's a misconnect between the platform to our ATS system, which is an applicant tracking system, or your resume will come over in a bad format, so we don't even see it. And you don't want that. The one main thing is when applying to a company, you want to make sure your resume and your application is as easy to view as possible for that recruiter and for that company. So we have that opportunity for you to be able to interview you. So I would say if you see a job on LinkedIn that you're interested in, immediately go to the website, dive in deeper, see if they have like testimonial videos from somebody in that position, reviews on that position, even see what you can find. And then if you're still interested in that role and you think you're a fit, apply directly through their website. As well as when you submit a resume, always submit it in a PDF format. That's an HR tip that you may not have needed to know, but I always recommend it. It makes it a lot easier to go through the applicant tracking system. There are certain things it screens for, and sometimes Word documents, if you use interesting fonts or something like that, it immediately kicks it out. And you won't even know. We don't even see it. It immediately goes into a bucket. So I always like to tell people that. That's my one tidbit from HR that I will always throw in there if I have a chance. Another thing from an applicant tracking standpoint, the system, when you do apply through a company's website, if they have questions for the specific position and they say optional, I always highly recommend trying to answer them. So if it's like, are you comfortable with travel? What are your requirements for the company location? Things like that. If they're optional, try to answer those. It shows, like, it at least gives us more of a better picture of you. We don't want to waste your time. When you're interviewing, we're interviewing you for a position, but you're interviewing us too. We want to be a good fit for you, and you want to be a good fit for us. So it's not just us for you. So I always tell you guys to keep that in mind too. Company fit, company culture is a huge deal, especially with the first job. You want to make sure you have all those resources, that training that you need to be successful out of your training and your education. So try to give all the information you can, and on your resume, put anything that you have. So maybe you don't have a lot of work experience because you've been in school. That's all right. We understand that. But if you were a research assistant or you did a huge research project, for example, put that on there. Maybe put what you did, what your role was. Make sure it's known. Or if you did an unpaid internship, shadowing. Those are just a few examples that I can think of off the top of my head. Go ahead, put that on your resume. It's definitely not a negative for us to see it. If you were involved in organizations on campus, I think those are all great things to put on your resume. It shows us that you can multitask, which is a huge thing for almost every position you'll interview for. We want to see that you can handle multiple things at one time, and that you know how to juggle things. So I think coming out of school, we want to make sure you're just not a student, which obviously it's hard enough. I've been there. I know exactly what that's like. But we want to see that you can juggle. Maybe you were involved in a couple of organizational leadership things on campus, or you played club soccer, or you held a part-time job. All of that is useful to us, even if it's not relevant. So say, for example, on the weekends, you were a bartender. Okay, that's fine. It shows us that you're still doing something. And I think that's always really great to put on a resume. So I always highly recommend putting anything you can find on that, for sure. Amy, am I missing anything?
No, that's really great. I love it. So I kind of want to hear, based on what you kind of heard today and where you're at, what questions does everybody have? If you want to share anything, Faith and I would love to kind of, see if we can help. Okay, we have a question, Faith. On an average, how many seconds does a recruiter look at your resume and decide if that resume is going forward or not?
Oh, that's a harsh question. I know everybody says it's about 10 seconds, and I really hate to agree with that. I would say it's probably about 15 to 20 seconds that you do spend at a resume. unless you think it's a good resume. So if I will glance very quickly to make sure that I'm like looking, say I'm looking for a position that requires a master's degree or higher. The first thing I do is look to make sure you have that. If not, I immediately reject because you don't meet the qualifications and you need 2 years of experience. I look for that really quickly. So if you meet those two, then I will spend longer on the resume, I promise. But very quickly, it is a very quick process. We go through hundreds a day. So with that, yeah, it is a pretty quick process. So I always say make sure your resume really is high quality. It doesn't have any errors because if we see spelling errors, things like that, it does put a pause on things. Sorry, I do realize there is a glare on my screen, so I apologize. So I always tell people to make sure there's no errors on your resume, spell check it, have somebody else review it, put all of the important stuff that you think that we need on there, your education, your work history, things like that as quick as possible. Make sure it's clear cut. I don't have to search for it. I'm not like, well, what's your degree in? Okay, have you had a job? I don't want to have to spend forever looking because it's probably not going to go well. So I always say make it clear cut. You want it to be straightforward because the interview is where we dive in deep to that information. I don't want a paragraph of information. Bullet points are the best way to go. When we want more information, that's when we want you guys to kind of showcase that to us in the interview to see what you can describe, and that's when we want to hear more. So yeah, it's pretty quick. So that's a great question.
Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, that was really good. So I kind of was thinking, since we're grad students here, grad students have a lot of academic experience. So should that be? Do you like that in the same place as the employment, like, or just like experience and that listed in chronological order, or do you like it really clear that it's separate, done at school, or does that depend on the position?
I would say I prefer all of the relevant things first on a resume. So usually I would like to see either the education at the very top or the very bottom, depending on how you format it. But put everything relevant at the top. So if you have a really relevant school project or you've done like research with that's very relevant, and then underneath that put your other work experience or unpaid things or organizational things at the bottom. And you want the most relevant at the very top.
Okay. And so there's a question, is it okay to apply for an internship within the first semester into your program? So if it's an internship that's for credit, that's part of your program, they're usually in the master's program a minimum requirement of credits before you can dive into that internship. So that's where you need to, one, check with your department, check with your academic advisor. On the Career Center's website, we have a link to every single master's program to their internship requirements. So those should cross-reference each other. So if you go to the careercenter.unt.edu, you can click on the internship page and it'll have information for your program. If it's like unpaid, if it's a job shadowing, that doesn't matter. So because that's kind of a separate thing. And I think, you should look for all of those opportunities. Some programs require that externship, those clinicals, whatever. It just depends. So I would first check with your academic unit and then decide. But you just want to make sure that you're following everything in your program because we don't want to mess that up at all. So we have a question. What advice do you have for students who have worked in one field for 4 years and now want to transition into something else? So it seems that when you apply for positions outside of this person is in billing revenue cycle, the apps get rejected. So breaking into a new field, how do you do that?
Yeah. What a great question. I would say the first thing would be try to get some sort of experience within the healthcare industry. Like we were talking about earlier, even if it's unpaid, shadowing experience, internships, anything like that. So you can put something on your resume that shows you're trying to make that transition. For example, with what you have, I traditionally am against an objective statement at the top, but for something like your case where you are trying to transition to a different field, it may not be a bad idea to put a statement at the top saying, have worked in this industry for a while, looking to transition into a new industry using my experiences and skills that I learned in my master's program or with my time with X, whatever company or whatever. I think the whole point is to really try to show that you are making that change. We have to see something, so we're not just like, well, you're applying to, for example, a nursing position, but all you've done is billing and what revenue. How does that correlate? We just want to see what your thought process is, I would say.
So, Faith, some of the things that, I think are really relevant right now could be like a technology. Maybe it's some sort of program. So well, I really encourage students to see what you can learn that's even outside of your what's required. So, get certified in, Excel,
For sure.
work on Adobe, work on your SPSS, whatever, because you don't know how that's going to help you later. And I think showing that you have an aptitude and a desire to learn this new technology, and with us, it's free.
Yeah.
I think is really great because that could be a way to kind of break into something. Like you may know really nothing about maybe the business processes, but maybe you have that familiarity with a software program, and maybe you have awesome customer service.
Mhm.
Someone might be willing to, bring you to their team. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I would say my only hesitation with that is if you're putting proficient on Microsoft offices on your resume, please make sure you actually are proficient in that. Obviously, everybody has experience with it. I highly recommend getting certified in Excel, PowerPoint, anything like that. I think that shows a lot more than you just putting on your resume that you're proficient in it, because I think at this time most people are becoming to be. It's been around a while. I know, for example, I thought I was when I got to my job, and I was like, oh man, there's so much I don't know about Excel. So if you can get that certification course in it, have that more in-depth knowledge, take a course on things to where you feel like you could do it, highly recommend, especially if it's free. Can't beat free.
And the thing is, a lot of jobs that could be something on the job description
Mhm.
is just Excel. So now you have another match than the resume. And I, tell alum too and students that it's one thing to say I know Excel, or I have a competency in Excel, but just like you said, Faith, what is your true proficiency at really what level on a day-to-day basis can you do this? If someone in an interview said, walk me through how to make a pivot table, would you be able to do that? I'm not saying that they would do that, but just like really be honest about where you are and be okay with identifying gaps. Like I'm a grad student, but I really haven't had the opportunity to do this. Let me find out how I can bridge that gap, especially if you kind of are interested in it and you're excited about learning it.
Mhm.
Those are good signs. So
For sure.
yeah, and then we have another question. What's the recommended length for a resume?
That's a great question. My immediate reaction is always one page. I do bite my tongue with that because sometimes if you do have a PhD or an advanced degree and you have a decent amount of work experience, it can go to 2 pages. Um, I personally prefer 1 to 2 pages. If you have to put more on there, that's fine. If you have that much relevant work experience. Um, like we talked about earlier, it's a quick glance at that resume. So anything more than 2 pages, honestly, I'm like, why are these all relevant? Is this something we need to look at? So I would definitely say try to stick between 1 to 2 pages, um, 11 font, double space, something like that. Make sure you're not using any crazy font. I always stick with Times New Roman, but not required. Just so that way, when you do apply and it goes through that applicant tracking system, if you use fancy cursive font, sometimes it doesn't read. So I always try to stick with one of the basic fonts so that way we don't have any issues when it translates over. Great question. Amy, when you mentioned the last thing about the Excel, the only other thing I thought of was if you guys are fluent in a different language, please make sure you put that on a resume, even if it's not in the job description. I know, for example, if you say you're fluent in Spanish, while that may not be a requirement, if they have two great candidates, that could be a useful tool for us. Like we may never know. Somebody who can speak Spanish is a lot more useful. So we always say if you're fluent in something, please put it on your resume. It never hurts.
Any other questions?
I have something to say and ask. So thank you, Amy and Faith. Can you please speak a little bit about the job shadowing? I have little to no experience and I am currently looking for a job. And so I'm kind of in a tight place right now. I'm trying to see my options and how I could improve upon my experience on my resume. So would I
Yeah,
need
well,
to book an appointment with you, or if you could speak a little bit about that, I'll be grateful.
Absolutely. And yes, we'd love for you to book an appointment with your career coach, and they can really kind of help, create that career plan for you. But we do have job shadowing experiences. So while you're still a student, there's a couple things you can do. You can do an internship, whether it's part of your program or not. You can do one that you find on Handshake, or you can do one that you find somewhere else. The ones that we are involved in, we support you. We are your advocate to make sure that this experience is fair, that there's learning objectives met. So looking on Handshake is a great way to find one of our partners who are willing to do an internship. It's great if they're paid, but sometimes it makes sense to do an unpaid internship. A lot of it depends on your field. Sometimes it's just the very best way to move forward. Um, the job shadowing we call Take Flight. And so we're really in a virtual setting still. When we're out of this, they would be on site, and they still may be virtual. We may be doing more virtual job shadowing, but it could be a 1-day experience. It could be a week. A typical Take Flight experience would be you're paired with the mentor, you spend the day with them, you go to the meetings with them, they introduce you to colleagues, they maybe have a coaching session with you, they maybe review your resume, they may share with you some of their network. It just kind of depends. It's kind of like almost like having a mentor, but just for like a little bit of time. But we have a page on our website that talks about that. Where we're at right now with this is we have someone in our office who is working with our employers to set these experiences up. So if a company has never done an internship, or if they've never done a job shadowing, we have that support for them. Like, how would this look? How can we help you? Things like that. So what I'm telling as a coach is, if you tell me these are the places, even a specific company, a corporation, or an industry, then I am referring them to our team to see if they can make those connections for you through UNT. Now, you can always try some of this on your own or look at postings, but I think let's hit everything from all the angles. So let me know what you want to job shadow in, and I'll get that to where to see if we can make that happen for you. Another thing is look at volunteer experiences, maybe in the same space. And I have some links to those, even like using UNT, even as UNT as it relates to like a community initiative, depending on what your field is, there may be something that we can help you with. So I would say make an appointment with your career coach, or you can just email me some of the things you're interested in, and we'll get you connected.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. Well, if everybody wants, we can go look at a couple of these websites I mentioned that I thought might be helpful in, the spreadsheet I sent you for sure. You can look through and see what is your area. You can clearly use that guide to do your research. But I would like to show you ONET if you have not seen it, and then also the what can I do with this major tool. So this we access through the Career Center website. It's a resource on our page, and so basically, I have put in a term. So you can view all majors here, and within business, there's specialties like marketing and so forth. So once you kind of find your basic lump, your exact major, or your closely related major or lumped together kind of field, you can check this out. So for the biological sciences, we have different areas that you might want to check out. So just different career buckets. So R&D. Okay, so what is going on? What are some possible employers for an R&D position? So it gives you some governmental agencies, some just kind of an overview of what kind of employers could have a job that you might be interested in. And then strategies to be more marketable. Looking at what you can do, learning about lab instruments, learning about equipment, taking a course in grant writing, getting a master's degree, just kind of some things that, could be helpful. And then healthcare, same thing. So all these different areas, biomed, eco. And then what's great about this site is at the very bottom, it will give you um, some general information of what you can do to make yourself marketable and to be as prepared as possible for the job search. And then also, these are the professional associations associated with this bucket. So we've got ones, that are different depending on your area of interest, but you should look at these. These are going to have people talking about your field. These are where the experts are. If there's any kind of credentialing or licensure, this is where you're going to have that information. They often have networking events, conferences. As a student, a lot of times it's cheaper to do is to, before you leave at UNT, and sometimes it's only like $25, or they maybe give you like a new professional membership, which is a lot better than later in your career. Stay connected. Just, look at it and see what makes sense to you. And then here is the occupational outlook. And we're going to look at this. This is going to link you to career data for these titles. And that's what ONET is. And we'll look at that in a second. But it lists them right here for you. Okay. And these are related resources. So you can look at these institutes. You can look at grants and fellowships, USDA Living Science, just like really kind of give a deeper dive into your area. And then employment opportunities. These are more of those specialized career sites. You can find out names of titles, find out the skill set, find out the education requirement. Now you have a title, and you can look at other places for the title too, like LinkedIn. So I really like this. What can I do with this major? I think it's very helpful in mapping out some steps that you can take. And let's go to ONET. So we've moved to ONET. Hopefully everybody can see that. So this is a report that I just put in biology. And biology, well, let's go back to the main page. So here's the main page. It's federal data that's used on reported career titles. And this is probably the biggest source of career data that we can get. So let's just say I type in biology here. So now I'm going to get a list of these top 20 occupations related to biology. I can expand my list if I want. I can go all the way to 87. As it goes farther down, we get farther away from those keywords. We can look at the bright outlook. Oh, bright outlook, that's a nice sunshine. What does that mean? These jobs are growing at a faster rate. They're predicted to have a greater number of job openings in the reported period. So once I kind of look at this, okay, I'm going to look at environmental restoration planners. Now I get a report. I get a summary of the tasks that they do, the technologies that they do, and this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier. AutoCAD, okay, I don't know what these are. Maybe I should look these up and see what's going on. Knowledge base, skill base, abilities, work activities, basically what you do every day, how you do it, and even as far as, I was talked about assessments earlier. You can even take an assessment in this platform to find out a little bit more about what environment you tend to work best in. And then you can see, are the jobs that I'm looking at aligning it with some of these high-rated skills that were for me when I filled out those assessments. I think that's really important because then you can kind of make sure you're on the right track. So you want to make sure the jobs that you're looking at seem to match some of those interests that you have. And I'll include that in the follow-up. It's called the ONET Interest Profiler. And this is also important. So it'll say the job zone, job zone 5 is extensive preparation. So that means a master's degree, a doctoral degree, or a professional degree. Zone 4 is a bachelor's degree is typically required. Now, it's possible if some of you are entering in the workforce after being in school, maybe you are going to have an edge and you're going to get one of those jobs that a master's degree is not required. But because of the extensive, critical thinking that you've done and maybe some of your academic work, you're a really great candidate. And then also when you get started in your career, your opportunities for growth and leadership, definitely could benefit from your degree. But this way you understand, okay, 52% of the people that have this title job have a master's degree and only 33% have a bachelor's. So it gives you a gauge of how you kind of stack up. You can find out about credentialing, and then here's the interests that I mentioned. So for this particular job, these are the top three: investigative, realistic, and enterprising. So when I did, my assessment, if I was looking for jobs, I'd want to see at least a couple of them popping into the jobs that I'm looking at. Work styles, work values. You got your wage and employment trends here. And then you can also, look at local information. You can pick Texas, and then you can pick a zip code if you want. You can look at other areas of the country, other regions, and then you can look at the projected growth rate. Job openings, those are more links to jobs on the web. And then again, here's more of those professional organizations. Might want to check those out. So use ONET to learn more about what you can do. So that there's a lot of other information in the PowerPoint, a lot of links to check out. So I just encourage you to make your list, make your timeline, check out some of these resources, and then figure out where you could use support. Reaching out to an employer, reaching out to someone like Faith, reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, asking a faculty to review your resume, kind of figure out what areas you might need to develop. And that way you can start making those specific goals so it doesn't feel crazy, because you're actually in school right now and you're trying to be successful in school. But maybe take some baby steps in this. So as much as you can do, before you're done and right in the job search, I think could be helpful.